Hi everybody, it's been a pleasure to have Rock from EtherFi. He's the co-founder of EtherFi, which we all know is the one of the key player and probably the biggest player in the restaking track right now. I know a lot of our group members and also my subscribers are very heavily invested in EtherFi as well as restaking. So it's a pleasure to have you on our channel today, Rock, just to talk about it. Would you give us a quick intro of yourself and as well as EtherFi?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Rock. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it. And thanks, Ben and Emily. Quick background on me. I've built go-to-market teams for startups. And so Mike, who's my co-founder and our CEO, he actually started a company out of undergrad called Top Hat, which is in the higher ed space. He built that for a series of years, and I built out the sales team there. So that company exited. We had some success there and got into the space full time in 21. And EtherFi we've been building for about a year and a half now. So EtherFi, we were running a hedge fund actually that was one of the strategies was an ETH staking fund, and we were staking with Lido. We had two theses really. One was that like Lido was too centralized, and so you needed to have users hold the keys, and so like we built the protocol with that in mind. And the second thing that we thought was that ETH yield was going to be like base ETH staking yield was going to be compressed over time, and so you need to find ways to get new yield and rewards for stakers, like because if it was at 2 or 3%, it's just not that interesting. We think it's going to go down to 1%, so we'll see what happens, but that's kind of the thought process behind it. So when we first announced like the company last March, when we raised some funds, we said that we were going to build it like with EigenLayer, and on top of EigenLayer, because we thought restaking was going to be big, and like, that would give us an extra 200, 300 basis points. We didn't know restaking would take off as much as it has. I guess like in retrospect, it's not that surprising. Like people tend to get attracted to yield. But yeah, so that's how we started. We raised some funds in January or February of 23 and spent the summer building, launched the liquid restaking token in November. The growth has just been insane. So we had about 20,000 ETH that was staked then. We're now over 1.3 million ETH that is staked on EtherFi. So it's the price of ETH fluctuates a lot, so I just denominate it in ETH. So 1.3 million ETH is staked in the protocol now.
Right. Yeah. So that's a great intro, by the way. So really, retrospectively speaking, when I first learned about restaking, and I knew there were quite a few players in the liquid restaking track, to name a few: EtherFi, Renzo, Kelp, Puffer. There are so many of them. So what makes EtherFi different?
I think
what is your thesis behind that you think will make you different?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with us is that we're building for the long term. And so we started building in March. We didn't know restaking was going to be as big as it was. In the summer, it became pretty clear that restaking was going to be becoming pretty big. That's the time Renzo was formed. Puffer decided to pivot from just a staking platform to restaking. Stater came out with Kelp, right? So people restaking, it seemed like it was going to be there. And so they got to market quick with products, right? And did that. We've been building this product for 4 months prior with these things in mind. So we built it the right way. It was super long and hard to build it how we did, and it put off our actual product launch. But two things that we wanted to focus on, one was making sure that we were decentralized and kind of really did the right thing for Ethereum. And then two was that stakers had control of their own keys, right? Go back to FTX, right? And so that whole blow up, if stakers had their keys, we wouldn't be in this whole situation of hey, who has the funds? Where are they? You always can be able to get your funds back. And we think that that's super, super important for this. And so I think those are the two things. And then I also think that one thing we're really focused on is a good user experience, in making users have a great experience, right? If our customers are happy, that's going to be, and so that's a very Web 2 thing of us to do. But I just think it translates. It has gone from the history of time. If you take care of your customers, we call them users, people call them community or whatever, it's good. You're going to be in a good place. And so, yeah, so I think those are probably the things that differentiate us. One is focused on decentralization. We've built this thing the right way. 2 is that stakers have control of their keys and control their assets at all times. And then 3 is that we're super user focused. Like we're going to do the right things for our customers over time. And like, we're not going to take shortcuts to get there.
I see. Yeah. So speaking of which, I don't think a lot of people understand how, how decentralized you are and how you implement that decentralization concept into the product of EtherFi. Could you please elaborate a little bit on that, and also as a comparison to, for example, how Lido does it?
Yeah, for sure. So with us, the staker, there's basically 2 sets of keys that need to happen to spin up a node. And for us, the staker generates those keys. They encrypt them and then send them to the node operator, who then has them and can run them. But ultimately, the staker has it, so they can withdraw at any point. With Lido, for instance, like the node operators have the keys. So they've done a really good job focusing on decentralization now. Like they've really pushed a lot on that. But for a long period of time, there was 32 node operators that had all the keys, right? Like, so it's like very centralized. Like if one of those operators like went down or something happened, and like, as we've seen, like through the US, like staking is clearly in the crosshairs of the SEC. Like if something had happened there, all of a sudden, like the execute would get like the door out gets very tight, depegs happen, whatever. And so like, it's one of the reasons that we've had withdrawals enabled from day 1 too. So people can get their money in and out, while stakers also have the keys. So anyway, they encrypt and they send these keys, and in return, they're monitoring the health of it, and they hold this BNFT, which actually is you can't trade it, right? Like that is soul bound to the validator. So most people who have EETH or wrapped EETH, they're participating in a liquidity pool that gets generated from these TNFTs, which has like 30 ETH on it. So those are the ones that you kind of trade more. That's what's active in DeFi, and most people are familiar interacting with.
I see. So in that case, does EETH holder have any liberty in terms of selecting their own nodes to stake their EETH to?
Nope, they don't. If you spin up your own node and you want to put up the 2 ETH bond, then you can select the node operator that you do. So yeah, so that's and right now that's a group of permissioned like stakers, and you have to go through like a process to get on. It will be permissionless in the next like quarter or so, where anyone can put up the 2 ETH bond and hold that, and like because that like just takes decentralization to like another level.
Yeah, exactly. That will be like full decentralization.
Yeah,
if that concept ever exists.
For sure. Yeah, and so we've been working on it. We plan to release it actually this quarter. Restaking has moved so fast that like our users wanted other things first, and so like we've prioritized those things. So like I'm actually super happy we focused on decentralization and security when we did, because I think that's one of the things that happens in crypto is you go so fast, and like it's so easy to take shortcuts.
Of course.
But we'd already focused on decentralization and some of those things. So it's like, now we know there's things that'll make it better, but like we're going to prioritize the user right now, because we already have like really good basis for like decentralization already baked in.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that also addresses a lot of the issues that even Vitalik himself raised against Lido previously, right?
For sure.
Essentially like 30% of the POS staked ETH is through Lido, and Lido, the DAO, which are controlled by a handful of people, has the full control over where that 1/3 of the money goes to, right? So that really makes the POS ecosystem, well, the chain, not as safe as it sounds. So yeah, I think it will make a world of difference if you guys can come up with that kind of flexibility and let people do liquid staking and restaking, but still maintaining their autonomy in terms of who they want to delegate their POS, staked ETH to, right?
Totally.
So, yeah. So, well, that's great. So you also mentioned something about user experience, how you come from a almost like a Web 2 type of background. I mean, it's a very interesting topic, because I also talk about that kind of stuff a lot, about other products, whether they are good UX or bad UX. Like, I don't think there is a Web3 UX. There's only good UX versus bad UX.
For sure.
I think people in Web3 all have very this assumed tendency of thinking, okay, this is Web3. It should be hard to use. It shouldn't have that, easement to let everybody use it. I actually don't agree with that, and I still think, any effort towards lowering that bar of entry, making sure people have good user experience, really will help your user retention. And that, I think, has a very high reflection on how you rolled out the first season of airdrops. Because I'll be honest here, when the first season of EtherFi airdrop came out, there were some mixed feelings in the market. But when it comes to in comparison with how Renzo did it, Kelp and Puffer, all those other guys who are supposedly in the same track, just following your guys' footsteps and trying to do the same thing, but just somehow didn't make it work as well. I think it goes to show a lot about how operationally savvy you guys are and how much thought that went into it. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Totally. Yeah. So this is the benefit of us being like past founders who have had successful exits, right? So it's like being an entrepreneur is hard. Like you're going to fail millions of times, and like your startups are meant to fail, right? Like majority of startups don't fail, or majority of startups fail. So like I think that really helped us to kind of make some of these decisions. Like we know how to operate startups and get through the grit to kind of like push through. Airdrops are challenging. There's about 100 different ways they can go wrong. And there's so many little details and different like parties involved in it. And so I'll be honest, like that week up to it and after, we'll call it like 3 days before and 3 days after was like probably the worst working week of my life, just because like it is super, super stressful.
Right.
It's obviously like a massive event. You have to like make sure all these little details are in line. Community is very noisy, investors are noisy, right? Like everyone. So it's like, how do you sift through the noise? And so really what we did, like when we thought through it, it said, okay, what are we trying to do? Like, what is it that we want to do on this? And what's the outcome that we're looking for? And again, it was user focus. It was that the users were going to have a good experience, right? And that they would be happy with what happened. And so, and we missed on that a little bit when we first came out with like the checker. But that's why we did the checker. So and basically the checker was like, you could check, see how many points you had. And then we got feedback from people, like there was a couple of tweaks we could make. Well, if you do the airdrop and then you have to make the tweaks, it's near impossible. So it's like, we did it about 48 hours in advance, got to make the couple of tweaks and then got to go live with it. So yeah, I mean, it's super hard. We had really good partners that helped us through, but ultimately I think the team, like our team is just super sound and like delivered at an amazing level. And I think it's probably our past, like the past stuff that we've done in startups. So yeah, I just want to make one comment too. Like you talk about the user experience and like onboard, like we are not going to, crypto will not grow and therefore token value will not grow if more people do not onboard. Like, and so you have to be more user friendly. Like it's just like the fact people accept some of the stuff they do, like for instance, like not having withdrawals enabled for a crypto, like is mind boggling, but we as users have accepted that and that's been okay. In the grift that like protocols come with is like, well, we need to build. And so we need to make sure, well, it's like, that's not how business works, right? You build a product, sometimes it fails, sometimes it doesn't. And like locking TVL in a protocol is madness. Like that's literally insane. If a bank were to tell you, hey, here, I'm going to hold on to your cash. Like you can open an account here, but like you can't get it back for 6 months or actually some unknown time. It's literally insane. Like, so
someone will fall for it. Someone will fall for it.
Yeah. Like, and they're like, well, we'll pay you more like on the back. Well, okay. Like, but why not just like make it so like, it's almost against the ethos of crypto too, right? Like the crypto is supposed to be these open rails, freedom, decentralized, right?
Separation.
Yeah. And now a protocol saying, hey, we're going to lock that in. And it's like, it's crazy. So I couldn't agree with you more, Ben. Like onboarding and Coinbase has these lofty goals, right? Like they want to onboard the next billion into crypto. We've said the next 100 million because like, in DeFi, there's 100 million wallets. I bet you it's like 10 million people, 15 million people. Like it's probably not that many people, right? Like we know big whales who have like multiple wallets on there and stuff. So it's like, it's not that many people. And like, but you need to grow that. Like the pie needs to get bigger. in how you do that is ease of use. And so like, it's actually one of the things that we're really focused on at EtherFi and why we've rolled out some of these new products that we have now.
Definitely. Yeah, that sounds great. And speaking of the token, since you already airdropped it, do you have any ideas of how that will be utilized in the future? Like, what are the utilities that are associated to it?
Yeah, for sure. So it has a role in governance, right? So like we work with a protocol called Agora. The first vote should come up in the next couple weeks, month or something. So like the role in governance is going to be super important. We think that like the fee switch should be turned on where rewards are shared back to stakers and holders of it. And so, if you think about like, it's just like one of the easy ways for this thing to accrue value and for the token to have value. So yeah, I think those are some things that like they'll do. In the governance, they can help with direction of things and, what node operators we use, what AVSs we onboard, etc.
I see. So one of the things I noticed, and I'm not sure whether Emily told you about this, is that last week we also interviewed Tian Li, which is the founder of Pendle. I would assume he's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
And this question I also asked him, which is an observation that I made, which is from previous cycles, we see a lot of DeFi Legos for sure, but it's more about Project B building on top of Project A, and Project A does not care about Project B, right?
Yeah.
We see that in the case, for example, Convex built on top of Curve, but Curve doesn't really care much about Convex. This time around, it's very surprising to me that Pendle adopted EtherFi's EETH and decomposed it into PT, YT. At the same time, EtherFi became forward compatible with the YT and PTs in displaying the correct points and everything. So could you please just give me a little bit of background of how that cooperation happens and what are the thoughts behind it? Again, this is a very Web 2 type of it's almost everywhere in Web 2, right? Like it's a collaboration, but somehow it's just a very strange idea in DeFi, especially in the last round. I'm not sure whether you guys are starting a new trend this time.
Yeah. So the Pendle team is amazing. We were trying to get like, our liquid staking token launched and we're like, hey, we got to find some integrations, find some utility for this. And we got into Pendle and we were trying to figure something out. And we're like, no. And then Tien and Anton came to us and they're like, hey, we have this idea about points. And like, so we got on and we started like doing this, and literally it's just the perfect product market fit, right? And so like, it basically turned around in a week. Like the Pendle team is amazing. Our team was amazing. Like it was really the first integration, and TVL just rocketed for both of us, right? Like perfect product market fit for Pendle, perfect product market fit for us. And then like every LRT just followed that, right? So it was just like boom, boom, boom. And the funniest thing, right, is like the savvy like institutional investors like, oh, PT, like I got 45% over 6 months. Heck yeah, like all day. Well, YT cleaned up. Like YT cleaned up for season 1. And so it's like the perfect but like both sides are super happy, right?
Exactly.
Like I actually think we're seeing this now with like the Eigen drop and stuff. Like YT's maybe not as happy now, and like a little frustrated with like, the points but I think it's because it was so good, like with the EtherFi one, but like on the same time, like I talked to an institution and they're like, I'm like, are you mad you didn't like take YT? They're like, no, like I got 45% over 6 months. Like that's insane. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
No. So, and I think you bring up a great point. Okay. So like one of the things is a challenge too, but it's also great is, the different markets we're in, right? So the Pendle team is based in Asia. Most of our team is in Cayman, Canada, and the States. So like our time zones are just completely whack, right? Like someone's getting up at 6 a.m. and someone's staying up till 8 p.m. Somehow that's going to happen. And finding great teams to collaborate with and trust is just one of the biggest things, right? Like for better or for worse in crypto, you start with distrust. Like people do not trust you because there's been so many rugs and you have bad actors and whatever. So I get why there's not a lot of trust. But like once you build trust with that team and can like build good products and like actually put financial work and you say, hey, go look at it. Like we were Pendle salespeople for 3 months.
I see.
You know, they're like, yeah, why should we get this? I'm like, because you can go get 50% fixed yield. Like, what do you mean? Like, you know, like,
right.
And so it just became like a conversation. Like, and their team, I think, is very similar to ours, like just high output, like, and move quick, right? Like mind of a startup in like ship, like is a protect users' funds, give a great product, but ship.
Exactly.
So yeah, and Tia and the team are amazing.
I see. So are you looking for more that kind of collaborations with other protocols?
For sure, yeah. I mean, like we're super, like our goal with ETH and Wrap ETH is just to be everywhere, right? Like Steve did a great job of it in DeFi Summer. Like literally you could go anywhere and Steve was there, right? Ours is a little more complex now because we have points. And so it takes time to get, like points are the bane of my existence. Points are great for users, but they're the bane of my existence because it takes so long to get these things up and going and integrated. But, you know, I think we have like 75 or 80 DeFi integrations now. You know, anywhere that we can integrate, we're going to be integrated, right? We just got to L2s. So, you know, we have 10,000 ETH on Blast or WETH, 10,000 ETH on Mode. We just launched Base, BNB chain. So like, we just want to be wherever and let the user make their call. We never want a user to be like, oh, I want to be here, or I like this protocol, but, you know, WETH isn't there. And so like, we're just trying to be ubiquitous and be everywhere within DeFi. And that's really our strategy about that. So yeah, and like we're working with Pendle now. Like what does post points life look like? Right. Like, so like we're working with them to try and figure some stuff out there. And I'm pretty confident we'll figure something out.
Interesting. So since you already brought it up, I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts in terms of what's going to happen after you know, Eigen drops its token and make it transferable? I think they're going to make it transferable like sometime in September. Like,
oh yeah.
So how do you picture the entire Eigen, or say the restaking track after that point, or say it may be half a year to a year period of time?
Yeah, I mean, so first, I'm like, restaking has just been points collection, right? Like, there's been no product out there until like now. Right. So like, I'm super excited we're here now. Like, amazing job by the EigenLayer team getting EigenDA out. Like, just super amazing stuff. And like, I literally think we'll look back on this moment in like 5 years and be like, holy cow! Like that team, what they pulled off, just incredible. There's a lot of really cool ABSs being built on Eigen, but I think that is the most important thing: is that people continue to build ABSs, right? Like that has to happen. And there's not enough building for how much TVL is in restaking right now. And so what is going to happen is the best ABSs are going to be attracted to the best capital. The best capital is one that doesn't depeg, that doesn't have withdrawals issues, that doesn't have like layers of risk on it, right? And so that's why the native ETH staking is going to be super appealing, because they know that ETH is secure, right? Like there's no funny games kind of going on around with this, right? So like, it's just super important that ABSs continue to build and like good ABSs build. I think that, you know, there's been a lot of like talk of new competitors coming up for EigenLayer, which from a market dynamics standpoint is probably great, right? Like, you don't want one person dominating a space. Like it's just not good for a market. So there's two that I've heard of. Carrick is one, and then Symbiotic is another. Those are the two kind of restaking narratives that we've seen kind of come about. So yeah, so like, I think restaking will continue to go and continue to run. I think staking is just going to turn into restaking, right? And people are going to get their 7, 8, 9% a year on ETH. And so like EtherFi, what we've done, like we're trying to vertically integrate our protocol. So if you want to be long ETH, we want you to be in EtherFi. So EtherFi stakes the first one, right? And that's where there's restaking, there's DeFi composability. We also came out with EtherFi Liquid, which think about it's like an investment account at a bank. Right. And basically you can, with a couple clicks, you can get into managed DeFi strategies, right? You can buy insurance, but it's very hands-off. You know, our thesis is that, again, users want easy, and like there's 10,000 people who are running these trades. How do we get 50,000 people into DeFi? Well, make it super easy, right? Like people are, I'm happy to pay whatever percentage if you guys can manage my strategies, or like an ETF, or, right? Like that's what it is, right? And so that is out, and that's going. That has over $500 million in TVL in it. We just came out with the market neutral one where you put US dollars into it, or USD, and we're coming out with EtherFi Cash. And so EtherFi Cash is where you're like, this is like RWA stuff, right? Where you're literally going to be able to have a credit card that you can spend like at stores. So we'll start with a couple countries in Europe probably. We're just starting to build it out. I think next week it should launch like the pre-product stuff. In a month, hopefully.
I also saw you guys April Fool's Day special.
Oh, EtherFi.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that one. I thought it was pretty good. I almost bought it.
Yeah, you couldn't actually like buy anything on it, but it was pretty funny. Like there's some good jokes and stuff in there. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But that being said, do you think there is a limitation in terms of how much of a percentage of native staking can be converted into restaking, in the sense that, you know, right now there's very high yield reward that is attracting a lot of the staked ETH into restaked ETH. However, do you think there is a cap for it? Because right now the conversion rate is still not very high.
Yeah, totally. Yes, there's definitely a cap to it. I don't know what that is. Like we still have tons of room to run. It also matters how much building happens, right? Like if a lot of building happens there, then the capacity grows, right? But this is a marketplace thing. Like it's not, you know, people could reject this and like businesses or protocols could decide it's not a good idea to build there, right? Or rewards are coming too expensive or whatever. Like it's a very ABS friendly world right now. And so it makes a ton of sense to pay there. There's no slashing. There's no, you know, rewards really to pay out. That evolves over the next 6 to 12 months. What does the cost of block space look like? You know, what can start get demanded? Will it get more competitive? But there's like, you know, 10 to 15 blue chip AVSs out there right now that everyone's trying to partner with. And so, so I think that's really how this will play out over time. And I think like the market will tell us, right? Like the market has said, hey, we're interested in it. Now restaking protocols and builders need to execute on it. You know, and I think expectations too, like I think people thought they were getting like a life-changing amount of money from like EigenLayer airdrops, which is just like classic, you know, crypto. But you know, that's why people get frustrated with airdrops, right? It's like I thought I was going to change my life with this. Like, you know, I gave X amount of dollars and I didn't get it. Like that's crazy. So anyway, that's kind of how I think through that.
Oh yeah, I think that played out in your favor, and also thanks to your great execution on the season 1 airdrop. You know, especially compared with your peers, everybody was super happy with your season 1 EtherFi airdrops.
Yeah, but audience they finally realized how great EtherFi is looking back. Back then they feel like, oh, maybe I could have more, but now they feel like, oh, I'm way too grateful now.
Yeah, whatever it takes. I mean, like I said, like we're just focused on if the users have a great experience, like especially in crypto, like the cycle of word of mouth. It's why like protocols can grow so fast. Like it's so vicious. Exactly. And you can grow so fast. And so like user focus, right? Like, have you ever heard anyone say like something bad about Aave? Like, you know, people like love Aave, right? Like they just, and so like people, if you're getting into DeFi, you go look at Aave. Oh, what's this Aave thing, right? Or like Uni, like they did their big airdrop, like everyone loved Uni, right? So it's like, take care of your users long-term and like the rest will kind of follow. Like I think too often people are optimizing for like token price or, you know, a big exit, you know, it's just like, give your users a great experience and like the rest will work out. It's kind of like our thoughts on it.
So yeah, that wraps up all of our questions today. Thank you very much, Rock, for your time. It's, you know, you're absolutely doing a great job at EtherFi, and I think I speak for a lot of my members that we all enjoy using EtherFi as our primary vehicle to invest in the restaking. So thanks again. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Good talking.